Once upon a time, there was a man who was in charge of things. A ruler, a president, perhaps, who thought he could do whatever he wanted and ignore the traditions of the land. He was a man born of privilege. He was a selfish and hateful man who hated people who weren't just like him and showed no respect or gratitude to anyone. Pause. I'm not making a political statement. This man's arrogance created a monster that consumed people, literally falling in love with its power and its strength. Rather than slaying the monster, maybe being a little introspective, he let his addiction to power grow, and he uses the monster he's created to push his own agenda. To do things like get rid of immigrants in his land, to threaten people who stood up to him. It might be easy to think that this is a statement about our country or a modern story. It's actually a story from Greek mythology about King Minos, and the Minotaur. King Minos, son of Zeus, thought that he could do whatever he wanted in the world and didn't owe anyone anything. He was sent a white bull to be sacrificed to Poseidon, but he refused, and he kept the bull for himself instead. As punishment, Poseidon causes Queen Pasiphae to fall in love with the bull, and together they conceive a half-man, half-bull, a minotaur. The minotaur was a beast, and it fed on the flesh of men. King Minos, rather than slaying the beast, decides to take advantage of its power, and he hides the minotaur away deep inside a labyrinth and feeds it innocent Athenians. The labyrinth was intricate and huge. In the story, it's thought to be a maze that one could get lost in. What we know now is that Greek and or Roman mushed together story about the labyrinth was likely based on what archaeologists believe was the first labyrinth at Hawara. And it's believed to be a funerary temple, especially because the earliest writers about them indicate that they were not allowed inside of them because they were sacred in nature. This month would be the Sokar festival in ancient Egypt. The festival was meant to reconnect people with their ancestors, calling on them to awaken beyond their grave. The procession of the festival involved following a meandering solar path that was thought to confuse forces of evil. Later, temples would be built to connect to the tombs and the altars using that intricate solar path that people followed. During antiquity, the labyrinths were destroyed and have only been able to be partially reconstructed. But in some ways, thanks to Greek mythology, we have some ancient images of labyrinths on maps and drawings. On coins, even. Our labyrinth plaque was made by our own Marty Chandler. Marty was another one of our founding members who loved the nature traditions, and so she agreed to make our labyrinth plaque out of stones. While the history of labyrinths may go back more than 5,000 years and was appropriated into Greek mythology throughout history, it then showed up sometime after 300 AD in Christian cathedrals, symbolizing pilgrimage. And with this, the labyrinth began to represent a spiritual journey again, rather than a prison for a monster. A way to discover ourselves. Have you ever walked a labyrinth? Yeah? There's been one in this building, at least one time, because I've seen photos of it. We have one in our cancer center. It's in kind of a garden area that an employee would have to take you to. You wouldn't know it was there. On the front of your bulletin, there's a finger labyrinth. There are at least 3 parts to walking a labyrinth. The first is the journey inward. The second is a pause in the center, and the third is the journey outward. And so you might use a finger labyrinth as such. If you are one to whom prayer is helpful, this can also be done with prayer. It can be helpful, though, to make prompting or intention for each part of the labyrinth because our minds get distracted. So here's an example. Find the entrance to your labyrinth for me. It's right down here. And just pause there for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what's troubling my heart right now? And then slowly begin your journey. Slowly. If that first answer came quickly, ask, why is this troubling to me? Continue the journey slowly. How does my body feel when I'm troubled? Continue the journey slowly. And as you reach the center of the labyrinth, pause. Be still for a moment and ask, what do I need in order to feel peace? Sit. Breathe. Listen to your own wisdom. There's something they teach us in person-centered therapy, which is the model that I studied in grad school and use in my pastoral counseling work. It's based on Carl Rogers' work, and it is that we already have all that we need to be well. So listen to yourself here. What do you need? And then begin to invite peace. Imagine with each breath that peace is coming into the body, settling the restlessness within. And when you have an answer to the question that you've asked, or when you're comfortable with not having an answer, begin the journey outward. Slowly journeying the same way you came in. Allowing your finger to trace familiar curves. Reflecting on what you've learned from yourself. Offer gratitude for the wisdom you instinctually have. And slowly, with each turn, gaining confidence. Bringing peace with you. Coming around that final turn now and joining me back here in the room. You can do this with any number of questions or reflections depending on what you need or what time you have. It can be a way of discerning next steps in your life. As you journey inward, asking what your options might be and reflecting on them, reaching the center and deeply reflecting on your desires, and then journeying outward, reflecting on the plan to make this happen, or focusing on trusting the universe in the future. The thing about the labyrinth, though, is that you're never really lost. There are no wrong turns because there's only one way in and one way out. It's a journey that you don't have to wonder where you're going because you can't do it wrong if you're paying attention. At first glance, a labyrinth may look overwhelming, but if we trust the process, we can make it safely through. The journey of our lives is like the labyrinth. We can rush through it, dizzy ourselves, not paying attention, or be obsessed with being productive. Or we can choose to be present and intentional. We can trust the process that wherever we find ourselves, there's something to learn. Perhaps you remember that I work not just with cancer patients, but also as a chaplain for our patients who are in the midst of a mental health crisis. I lead a spirituality group weekly on that unit as well, and I often teach them simple meditation and mindfulness practices. It takes some finesse to work on these units because there's a fine line between concrete thinkers, the weaponizing of sacred texts, and what many might consider delusion. One afternoon, while responding to a consult request, a patient was reflecting on their ideas about God and religion, and as people often do with me, the person said to me, "People get so wrapped up in the idea of the second coming. They envision Christ descending from a cloud in the sky to sit in judgment of us all. But," they said, "I believe the second coming isn't about some guy in the sky judging us. The second coming is about us returning to ourselves." And that blew my mind, right there on the psych ward. We all have wisdom within us, truly. Right now, there's this apprehension in the world, a sense of dread for many of us. And there may be a temptation to stop paying attention at all, to turn away, to find a way to numb and lock away the feelings of fear or discomfort. The labyrinth invites us instead to be awakened, to remember who we are in times like these, to trust the deeper wisdom at our center. And what's at the center? Love. I love it when people pay attention. Love is at the center. The greatest wisdom is in offering love to ourselves and to others. To be motivated by love. Love in a world full of fear and hatred is the deepest and most profound protest. And if we let it, the wisdom of love will always guide us home. The Minotaur was eventually killed by one of the men who was meant to be consumed by it. And while I love a good hero story as much as the next person, the truth is that the labyrinth was never intended to be a maze. And we have never been truly lost. Although Stu might disagree with my actual sense of direction. The labyrinth and our own spiritual journeys are not meant to be a place to get lost. but a place to be found. In the journey of this life, as in the labyrinth, there's only one way in, only one way out. But we do get to choose just how we approach the journey. We can speed through it without paying attention and numb ourselves. We can skip the rests, the opportunities to be still in the middle. Decide we don't have time to take it slow. Or we can choose to awaken, to savor each moment, determined to learn even through the difficulties and using love to slay the monsters of our own insecurities, arrogance, and greed. We can lean into love and practice gentleness and compassion. We can be transformed and embrace the changes that come with each twist and turn. In this lifetime, may those lessons be ones we approach with open hearts and minds. May it be so.